know this is a pretty cliche thing to say, but I really don't want to make this video. Security Breach, ever since it released, it's the newest game in the FNAF series. There was a lot of hype for it, and yet it's a pretty controversial game, and there's reason for that. And today I'm not going to defend the game in areas where I think I should critique it maybe a bit. I'm also not going to needlessly bash the game. I'm going to try and find a middle ground. I'm going to try and say the things I like, I'm going to try and say the things I don't like, and see if we can maybe find ways to improve this game in the future, and also just talk about what makes it a good game in the series. That's it, let's go. Let's talk about the things that we like first. First of all, the gameplay is way more involved than previously in the series. For the longest time, the series was mostly just a point-and-click game where you point and click. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. We've gotten a bit more involved gameplay lately with games like Help Wanted, but this is by far the most diverse game in terms of how much you can do, how many mechanics there are, a lot of them being really interesting and actually helpful and kind of creative. So I think the first thing that we should say today is the gameplay is good. Even if it's broken, which we'll get to soon, the ideas and how they're executed for the most part are really good. Also, the scope of this game is generally so much bigger than in past games, and this kind of comes hand in hand with the whole gameplay thing. But the game in general is huge, way bigger than previous games in the series. I mean, again, going back to Help Wanted, that game fit 3 of the original games in one game, and then it added on a bunch of more content on top of that, tons of brand new and original stuff, and it still doesn't even come close to the absolute size of this game. Graphically, I do want to say this game is also an improvement. In terms of character designs, I'm not so sure, we'll get to that soon, but in terms of aesthetically and how much there is in this game, how appealing it is visually, it looks so much better than the previous games, and the graphical capabilities that it can handle, with ray tracing being somewhat runnable in this game, makes it, again, a plus for the game. It just looks great. A lot of people are saying that the designs of the characters in this game are not very scary at all, and I will agree with that to some extent. When the game begins, a lot of these characters are not scary. The designs of these characters start off in a way that you could actually see them being entertainers for children, and a lot of people don't really like that. I mean, it fits with the narrative that the story is trying to tell, that these are supposed to be children's entertainers, but the whole point of the game is that to older people, they have always seemed more disturbing, and I think the first game is the only one that really got a really good balance of that. These characters look like maybe children could totally be fine with them, but as adults, they seem a lot more disturbing, and they fall into that uncanny valley. This game does that a lot more as the game progresses, with characters like the daycare attendant being a lot more creepy, and as the game goes on and these characters get more and more beat up and destroyed, it does fall into more of that actual scary character design, which I think is a cool idea and a plus for the game in general. That being said, as the characters get more destroyed, they do kind of fall into more of a standard, broken, creepy robot trope than anything super unique. But the game does have some genuinely scary parts. Again, the daycare attendant part is really intense and kind of scary. Stuff with those endoskeletons beneath the PizzaPlex in its little basement area, really scary stuff, even if it is very similar to that one part in Joy of Creation, which is kind of odd. Roxanne Wolf later in the game is pretty scary and kind of tragic as well, actually. Weird how she seems to be able to feel genuine human emotions, but we'll get to that in a bit. I do like how Steel Wool added full minigames in this game. I think they planned to add more, but they just didn't have enough time. Another thing we'll get to later. But the games that we do have, the little minigames, are pretty cool, even if the lore that they reveal is a bit confusing. They're just fun, and seeing Princess Quest make a return from Help Wanted is really cool to see as well. Going back to design a little bit, the PizzaPlex is great. It feels like an actual mall. This feels like a place you could actually visit. All the rooms and areas in it make sense. It all feels like something that you would find in an actual mall, apart from maybe the giant robots and such. But everything else totally makes sense given the narrative and given the area that we're in. Now let's move over to some things that I didn't like as much about the game, and the things that I'm sure you've heard about from a variety of different people. First of all, the game is super bugged. It's full of glitches, which, I mean, it didn't used to be the case that games would be basically broken when they were released. They used to be basically bug-free. And yet, this game is very broken in a lot of ways, and that's made speedrunning the game very easy. And there are reasons for this, which we'll get to in a bit, but it is disheartening to see the sheer amount of bugs in this game, and many of them will be found by basically every player. So I don't know how Steel Wool managed to test this game and not find any of these bugs. Maybe they did, and they just planned to fix them later, and they never did. I'm not really sure what the plan was there, but again, we'll get to why this is in a bit. Going back to the scariness factor that we talked about a bit before, for the most part, the main villains you face off against in this game are not scary. The main four here don't make me scared in the slightest. Previous games were really scary. Help Wanted, definitely. Playing it in VR is not something that I want. There we go. Not something that I want to do again, because it was intense. But this game doesn't really have that. These characters, as I mentioned before, until they get more broken way later in the game, don't really do much for me or for anyone else, seemingly, in terms of scariness. But again, there are characters and scenes and elements of this game that are definitely scary, so it's not all bad. It's just the main running from these four animatronics that I think could have been done better. Or just changed to something else. I don't know. Just my suggestions and thoughts. I will say the one thing that has been, I'd say, most important about this series in the past, and continues to be, is the story. We've always cared about the story, the theories, the lore, and the hidden things in this game that tells us the wider, overarching story of what's going on in this franchise. And in this game, there is not much of that. Just off the top of my head, a list of things that we don't know the answer to yet. Who is Gregory? We know he's homeless. We don't know how he got in the PizzaPlex. We don't know what he's doing here. We don't know why I don't know. Number 2, Vanny. We barely know anything about her, and she barely shows up in the game at all, so we don't really get much of an answer, apart from those therapist logs. Number 3, are the animatronics hacked? Are they possessed? Why are they evil? Why are they turning against Gregory? And number 4, the one I was going to get to, why isn't Freddy the same way? Why doesn't he show the same aggression towards Gregory that the others do? Theoretically, they should all be the same. Number 5, what are these endoskeletons? Are they possessed? Are they hacked? What's going on with them? Number 6, where did the PizzaPlex come from? Why? I didn't know that Fazbear Entertainment had enough budget to make a mall this massive. Number 7, Springtrap. Why is he back just to burn him alive again? How does that make any sense? He comes back for like 5 seconds just to get burned alive a second time, by the looks of it anyway. And number 8, how does Glitchtrap play into any of this? Is he what's inside this version of Springtrap? Is he an entirely different entity? Are there 2 Springtraps now? That seems a bit far-fetched and contrived. There's more. I could go on, but it's just the fact is there's a lot of things that we don't have much of an answer to. And a lot of this is because a lot of stuff, as we found by data mining the game, has been removed. A lot of features, a lot of elements of this game were removed before release at some point, and we don't know why. We might know why. We'll get to that in a second. But there's a lot of stuff that has been removed. Stuff like entire characters, entire areas, entire features and gameplay elements. Vanny in general, her appearing more apparently has been gone from the game, which I really wish we could have gotten that. And all of these things that could have been done better, I think, is due to the fact that Steel Wool is a small studio and they weren't given very much time. I think that they've proven that they can make incredible games. I don't think there's any debate over that. For the small team that they are, they've made some incredible stuff, and this game is one of those things. The problem is, for the huge vision they had, they were given a very small amount of time. They were given 1 year. I think, if I remember correctly, the teaser for Security Breach came out in 2019 at some point, and in 2020 was the original release date, and we got it in late 2021. Not that much of a delay, and not that much time to make this game, this huge game. Now, I think the question is, what solution could we have taken? Because the thing is, a lot of people were really itching to get their hands on this game, and every time it was delayed, people got more and more negative about the game in general. So I feel like if they had another delay, especially a big one that they probably would have needed, it might have been worse, actually. People might have been more upset. So I think the best thing that Steel Wool could have done, in my opinion, as someone who does not run a business, does not anything of the sort, the best thing that Steel Wool could have done is just be transparent about it. Is just tell us, like, this game is huge, and they did, to some extent. Scott did, anyway. If they had just said, this game is going to be huge, we need way more time than we anticipated to make this game huge, I mean, they kind of said that. They kind of used a bit of, I don't know, when Scott mentioned it, he mentioned that the game was going to be bigger. He mentioned that they were going to need more time. I don't think he really mentioned just how big. I feel like if they had really stressed, like, we're taking our time with this, we're going to take a lot longer than anticipated, but that's what we're doing. I think if they had just done that and said that outright, a lot more people would have been okay with the delays. We all knew the game was going to be bigger. We just didn't know how much bigger. And we didn't know that they would need so much more time. The game, I will state this again, has so much potential to be really, really good. At this point, I think that once the glitches are fixed, it'll only be a good game, which, I mean, it was shaping up to be my favorite in the series, so I don't know what that says about me or what it says about the game. I think it needs more time. And while it's not ideal for a game to only really be its best self after release by, I'm assuming, what'll be several months, I think if they need to take the time to do a huge update where they add all this stuff, I say go for it. It's unconventional. It's not normal to add a bunch of features after a game has been released for a game that was supposed to be done initially. But I think if that's what it takes to make this a really good game, go for it. Better late than never. And maybe that'll lead to a lot of people not realizing that the game has gotten better and still thinking it was this glitched, buggy mess. But at least then the game is done. It's the vision that they had for it, and it's really good. And that's what I want this game to be. I'll say it again, I don't think it's bad. I just think it needs more work. And I think that maybe they didn't have enough time for that because of us. Maybe we were the real monsters. All in all, I guess we'll see what the future of this game is and what the future of this series is. We will have to find out. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening to my thoughts. I'll see you very soon with some pretty interesting things. We'll have to see what those are, I guess. Alright, bye-bye. See you soon.